Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something and then it flopped? Our next guest is going to talk about how she created a perfect opportunity for moms, but no one came. She could have quit right then and there, but instead, she picked up the phone and called these amazing moms and asked, "Can I try again next week?" And the second time, it worked. All because she was willing to keep going even after feeling like a total failure. My friend, if you have ever launched to crickets or failed publicly, you're not alone. This next episode is going to encourage you to keep going, to keep showing up, because you never know when that next launch, that next one thing is going to be that one thing that changes everything. Welcome to the Kingdom Revolution Podcast, the online podcast for mamas against the mainstream agenda. We are redefining faith in online business to empower you, the Christian mama, to find and strengthen your roar, to clarify your calling so that you can create, grow, and launch a profitable, impactful, and scalable business by God's design without being a slave to social media and without sacrificing your faith and values. You know that you've been called to business and you want to do it God's way, not the world's way. A business that is based off the blueprint He put inside of you. A business by God's design, one that incorporates your testimony and inner fire to make a difference in this world. Like me, you don't mind going down a few rabbit holes, but you don't have to go down one to see that there is a war on future generations, a war on families, and a war against you, that kingdom warrior mama called to business, a war to silence your voice and movement. I believe your online business is your battlefield. It's how you get to show up and use that voice to create kingdom wealth and take back what the enemy has stolen. You have that inner fire to change your family's legacy, to take your passions, knowledge, life experiences, or even that hobby that you love and create an online business, bringing a heavenly solution down to an earthly problem. Maybe you have too many ideas. You're not even quite sure where to start. Or maybe you've been struggling for a few months, even years, duct taping it all together with worldly tactics and strategies that are just leaving you confused, overwhelmed, and questioning your calling. If that's you, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm your host, Kristen Duranci. I'm a wife, mama, ex-9-to-5er, and daughter of the King. I am a mama against the mainstream agenda who is using her voice and her online business to fight against the evils going on in today's world. I believe God is calling women back into position, to a kingdom revolution, to the battlefield, to find and strengthen their voice, to stand firm for biblical truth, to be the change they want to see in this world. My mission battlefield? Restoring the family unit the way God intended, to bring mamas home so that they can be the one raising their warriors for the kingdom while making impact and income. So join me each week as I dive into honest conversations about my journey, tactical tips, spiritual and mindset strategies, along with the step-by-step plan to empower you to take that step of faith, to partner with God, to create, build, and launch an online business by His design without being a slave to social media. So if you're ready to say yes to all of this, you're not afraid to rock that status quo and be part of a kingdom revolution, then armor up with Ephesians 6 and put on the full armor of God, because you are a warrior for the kingdom, and He is going to use you and your online business to do some pretty amazing things here on this side of heaven. Hey, welcome back to the Kingdom Revolution Podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Duranci, and I have an amazing guest today, Rhea Lana. She began her business journey almost 30 years ago when she was a stay-at-home mom and had an idea to have an upscale children's consignment sale in her living room. What began with 3 racks of children's clothes in a humble home is now a franchise system with 120 women-owned franchises serving families across the country. I am so excited to connect with you today and have a conversation that I know that is going to inspire these amazing women listening, But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your story and what inspired you to create this franchise.
Hi, Kristen. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. I was a mom with 3 small children. My husband had taken a career move and had moved into nonprofit work, and we just found ourselves, like so many families, living paycheck to paycheck. The problem was one paycheck wasn't quite making it, to the next paycheck. And I loved cute kids' clothes and couldn't afford new. And so I really loved secondhand shopping. But at the time, this was in the mid 90s, there just wasn't a great secondhand shopping experience. And so when I started it, it really wasn't meant to be a business. It was just meant to invite friends over to my living room, and I washed and ironed everything, and I wanted it to be perfect. And I remember being so excited that I had 11 moms that would let me sell their things. And we moved all the furniture out of my living room, and we had 3 racks of clothes. And that's how we started. And then another little aspect is after that first sale, my husband said, Rhea Lana, we should computerize this. And though, during that time, computers were not a big deal. We didn't all carry phones around. And so we joked that we had probably the first computerized garage sale in the world. But that's how it got started. And I just always loved, as a mom, I knew the challenges that moms face, just juggling all the things. And so my heart has always been just to help moms feel special.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing about your journey. And I know for you, you say that it was never really about business, but it's about helping these moms navigate the many hats that they wear. So that's a topic of concern, especially among Christian women who are stay-at-home moms or work a 9 to 5, but they have that burning desire to step into the world of entrepreneurship. So from your experience, how can moms do it all without that burnout, but still have the harmony that we crave in our marriages, in our life, and our business?
It's definitely a challenge, and it's where I found myself. I do think it's important to remember that women go through seasons of life. We can't do it all at the same time and do it all excellently. That's just a fact of life. We have to pick and choose and prioritize depending on the season of life. But I also think we have to sort of prioritize our lives. And, in our little world of selling used clothes, we help moms organize their home, get rid of the things you don't want, find those things that are valuable that you can sell. And so I think that applies to our daily lives too, in our lives as women and moms. What can we kind of get rid of that's maybe they're time wasters, they're weighing us down. And then what can we focus on that maybe it's a skill we didn't know we had. I had no idea that I liked business. I have a college degree. It's not in business. My family didn't do business. I just had no idea. But as I stepped into it and began to kind of first of all, I did really love serving families and serving moms. And so that's what kept me going. And as a challenge would happen, I'd find that next solution. And then I found, I kind of like business. And, I really can do numbers. I didn't think I could do numbers, and I didn't know I could do marketing. But you do have to step out. And I would just encourage your listeners, who I know are just amazing women, just to step out of the comfort zone that they've always kind of felt comfortable in and try something new. One little story for me, before I ever did my consignment, I actually was also teaching tennis lessons because my kids, we couldn't afford tennis lessons. And so I taught, and I wanted my kids to learn. And so I spent all summer one time running this tennis camp. And I got to the end of the summer, Kristen, and I made zero money, like zero. And I was heartbroken. But it was this huge lesson of, well, if I'm going to spend all this, if my purpose is to be nonprofit, that's fine. But if my purpose is to run a business, well, then I better learn more about my money and my finances so that I can make money. And so that was just, sometimes you do have to fail a little bit in order to learn success.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I like to say that the stepping stones to success are our mistakes and our failures. And the world has put a bad, I guess you could say, tone on what failure actually means. I mean, in school, if you get an F, it means you failed, right? But really, it means you just get to learn and try it again a different way. It's like you just haven't accomplished or learned that. So I love how entrepreneurship and stepping into the online business space, but I guess specifically stepping outside of our comfort zones leads to those little mistakes that we get to learn from so we can do those hard things. And you talked about that you didn't have a business degree or a marketing degree. You just took what I like to call your God-given genius zone, something that you're passionate about, something that you love to do, and you created something from that to solve a problem that these young moms had. So you kind of talked about how you stepped outside of that comfort zone along that business journey from a stay-at-home mom into a business owner, a CEO. For those moms that are listening and those women that are either stay-at-home moms or at a 9 to 5, it's kind of the same thing. We have to get over that hurdle and that comfort zone of actually taking that step of faith. So what did you discover about yourself? And what are some tips that you could give the women listening that would maybe push her lovingly off that fence to take that faith-filled step of obedience?
Well, I would just first of all share that very first sale that I had in my living room. It actually was a failure. I mean, following up on what you said about that, we do fail. It's a part of life. I remember actually an introvert by nature. I've never been the one that was the big, needed the big hoorah, And my thought was, if I build a sale that's perfect enough, that shoppers will come. Well, the problem was that very first sale in my living room, it was perfect, but nobody came. And so I had to kind of take a risk, and I had to actually invite people. And that can be hard for us as women. We don't want to experience rejection. It was hard for me, but more than the fear of rejection, I wanted to succeed. And I think we also as women need to figure out what our why is. Simon Sinek has written a really good book on discovering your why. And for me, I was very motivated because my family needed me to figure out a creative way to add to our income. And so I couldn't just quit. And I think if we know our why, it's actually a biological process, that it keeps us motivated, it keeps us making. So for that very first sale, I remember calling all 11 consigners. I apologized and I said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't sell enough. Will you please let me keep your things one more week? I'm going to try again." And then I did, and I tried some new marketing things. And really that has been my journey from that very first sale to now as a CEO, is just always learning, always trying new things, apologizing to my customers if I don't get it just right, but then determining to fix it. And I think that's how, as women and moms, if we just have that approach with our lives, that we're going to continue to always get better, grow personally, grow professionally if we are in the working world or entrepreneurship or working for someone else. But I think if we have that mindset, and then what I love about it as moms, our kids are watching us too. They're watching us grow and mature and always prioritizing and focusing on the most important things. And when we're doing that, we also then don't have the time to kind of do the excessive time wasters that we all can do now, especially with social media. We can scroll our life away if we're not careful. And so, but those are just a couple of things I think that have helped me grow, and continue on this path and hopefully I'm now 60 and I want to continue growing. I want to continue to becoming more mature and learn new things. And hopefully as we all continue to grow, we have greater influence and we just help more women along the journey.
Yes. Oh, I love that. There's so many good nuggets I could pull out of there. One thing I wrote down is that you said you created this perfect event and no one came. I know the women listening can resonate with that, especially myself. The first couple of times I've launched, it was crickets. No one was there. But you really dug in because you knew it was your calling and you did the thing again. So if you don't get anything else from this amazing interview, which I know you will, but understand that you have to keep trying and doing the thing again, because it's not going to be quote unquote perfect the first time. And it's never going to be perfect. The important part is to show up and do what the Lord is asking you to do, just like Rhea Lana did. So valuable right there. And then you talked about tapping into what the Lord is asking you to do, even though this is what I got from it. Even though you don't know what the end looks like, you really tapped into your passions and your dreams. So for the woman listening that knows that she's called to something, she has that burning desire in her heart to extract her God-given genius zone, to create a franchise or to do something, how would you suggest women begin discovering what their passions, dreams, desires are if they're not even quite sure where to start?
That's such a great question, Kristen. And I think we need to look in our lives and where are things working? Like, where are we getting positive feedback? Where is there fruit? Where is there positive momentum happening that maybe is even something we didn't expect? And then on the other side, where are we hitting roadblocks over and over and over? One thing that I learned from in my journey, again, I'm naturally an introvert, but I had to learn to get out there and speak and to interact. And to one time, I'm in the journey of my business, I ended up finding myself in Washington, D.C. and testifying before Congress on just some business regulatory things. And I'm one of those that I want to prepare and I want everything to be perfect. And I found myself sitting in front of these these senators, and I looked down and I had forgotten my notes. And it was this most terrifying moment of my life. And I remember thinking, I'm going to embarrass everybody who knows me. I'm going to fall on my face. But what I learned is I could speak from my notes if I tried. Like, there's more in my brain than I thought was there. And it was just one of the things looking back that was this huge growth opportunity where I had my back was kind of against the wall. I had to do it. And then I did a good job, because part of that issue was you had to communicate complicated issues in a very simplified, way. And I think, so there's so many different ways that applies. But I just know that women out there are good at things they just don't know yet. And so we have to try things and then we get feedback, positive or negative. If it's negative, keep trying. But at some point, we can evaluate, what are we good at?
Yeah, I love that. I always tell my clients that you can sit there and create a lead magnet or a freebie, or you can create your course, but you're not going to know anything about it until you put it out in the world and actually get the feedback that you need in order to make the changes or see if it resonates with the people that you're called to serve. So I love that story, and it made me chuckle inside because so many times we're so afraid to put ourselves out there, to go live on social media, or to use our voice. When we actually start to use it, I mean, it's amazing how the Holy Spirit wisdom shows up. And like you said, we already know everything. The blueprint's already inside of us. Let's talk about using our voices, because I wholeheartedly believe that it is a weapon that as women, we get to use on this side of heaven to change broken and corrupt systems, to create kingdom wealth, but also a weapon that we get to use to wreak havoc on the evils of this world. So how can we encourage each other as women to chase our dreams, to use our voice, and to stand in the power that we're called to stand into when we're called to this online business space or entrepreneurship in general?
Well, I think to me, it goes back to our values. Are we staying true to our values? When I first started my business, I actually there weren't too many women entrepreneurs back when I was getting started. And so I read everything I could find on Mary Kay Ash. I had never sold a product. I was never a good salesperson. But Mary Kay was an amazing woman, and she really pushed that glass ceiling for women in leadership and business. And I remember reading all of her books. And one of the things that she talked about was using the golden rule in all different decision making to really put yourself in the place of the other person. And so when I was developing my business, that's what I would do. How would a consignor feel, or how would a shopper feel? And I feel like our listeners can do that. Always put yourself in the other person's place. And then I think what I love about the Bible just has so many great biblical principles: being honest, loving others. When we do those things, then we're using our voice in the right way. We wouldn't want our voice to be manipulative or be self-serving. But I think as women, if we are staying true to the biblical values that God has in His Word that are unchanging and they're timeless, and then we are also on this journey of growth, then that's when I believe that God blesses our voice. And because there's a need out there for truth, for timeless principles, for honoring people, helping people to feel valued. Even if people are different than us, we still want to love them and stay true to again, what the Bible teaches.
Yes. Oh, such good wisdom and powerful tips and strategies right there. Always go back to your passions, your desires, and what does the Word of God say? Align what you're saying and using your voice to biblical truth so we can be the change here on this side of heaven. This has been such an encouraging interview and talk with you. I do have a question that I know some of our listeners may. It's a little bit different from what we're talking about, going back into your franchises. If someone is interested in starting a franchise or they heard your story and they're going to go check you out and check your website out, how can they get in contact with you if they're interested in tapping into one of your franchises and bringing that to their community? And then what are some tips that you could give the woman listening that might be interested in starting her own franchise?
We would love to visit with someone. Again, we do pop-up children's consignment events. And so if one of our listeners is interested in finding out more information, it's a seasonal business. So it is a side gig. It can work whether someone has a full-time job or whether they're a stay-at-home mom like I was years ago. It really does fit either way. But you can find us at rhealana.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. Rhea Lana Reiner is my name. But we would love to visit with folks. And there's also, would be happy to give a free consultation at rhealana.com/podcast. And we also have just some free leadership resources, no matter where our listeners are today, whether they want to interested in a Rhea Lana's franchise or maybe just taking the next step in their entrepreneurial journey or just personal growth journey. I love mentoring women, Kristen. It's the thing that really makes my heart beat. And I just love seeing women grow. I now have a corporate team and I love seeing the women who work here and they're growing also as leaders. And God has gifted us all differently. And so that's what I love is helping women find how can they use their voice in this season of life. I have other friends who are more like my age and maybe they're retiring from their long time 9 to 5. I have one friend who she wants to start speaking to small groups of women, helping them discover their giftings. And so it's her passion project. And I just think that's the neat thing about women is, again, life changes depending on the different seasons. Our capacity changes. We're such caregivers, whether we're caring for our children or our aging parents or all the things, and those things, they change. And I do believe that our capacity changes, but as we are committed to really growing, the neat thing is that our capacity grows too. And you have this ability to really do more than you ever thought and have a chance to use your voice and influence more. And so that's what I really love about being part of a community of women.
Oh, amazing. Yes, it's so important to be a part of a community. And I love how you talk about our seasons change. So our calling changes in different seasons. So I love that you help and inspire women, no matter what season of life they're in, to bring forth that passion project you call it. So let's talk about community here a second. We know it's important. So how can those women find community when they feel like they're doing all of this on their own?
It reminds me of a story that I was in my journey. There was a time when, when you start each business, you wear the hat, you do all the things. And when I was just beginning to franchise, I couldn't afford to send a team to launch a franchise. So I went out we were launching a franchise in Hawaii. It sounds really glamorous. It actually was a lot of hard work. But I hadn't traveled very much and I was learning how to travel and I had to be gone for about 10 days. And so I remember that I took these 2 big suitcases. They were pretty heavy, but I needed lots of things. I was going to be on TV, but I was going to have tennis shoes, work in the event and all the things. And so it was time to return home. And at the end of the day, I needed to be at my event in Central Arkansas, which is where I live. And so I knew I had this big travel day. My team was waiting for me at my event. And so I packed up my suitcases. And I remember getting to the airport there in Honolulu and just kind of followed the line of people. We dropped off our rental cars and there was this line of ants to the airport. And so I got into the line of people and I'm walking and everybody gets on an escalator. And so I got to the escalator and I put one suitcase on the top step and I'm on the middle step and I had the other suitcase down below me. And as the escalator went up, that top suitcase began to fall over me, like literally on top of me. And all of a sudden I am like, my head's between my ankles. I'm upside down on an escalator. And I have no idea. Like, first of all, how in the world did I get here? And then secondly, what am I going to do? And this very nice, strong man that was up ahead of me, he lifted the big 50-pound suitcase off of me. And, thankfully, I did get off the escalator in time with both suitcases. I had bloody shins. I'm hoping nobody saw this, but of course, everybody did. It was so embarrassing. But this is a true story because the first lady that walked past me said, well, why'd you bring all that heavy suitcase, all that luggage anyway? I mean, it was this total shame, judgment moment. And then the very next lady that walked past me, she said, you're going to be okay, honey. That happened to me before. And I think that goes back to community. Like what you were saying is, what kind of women are we? Are we judging? Are we spending time shaming? Or are we spending time reaching out and encouraging? Because I think if we are those kinds of women, then we naturally build community because we all need it. We all are doing things for the first time. I hadn't traveled before. I didn't know that you should actually get on an elevator and go up the elevator when you have heavy laugh. If anybody doesn't, I didn't know that. And so I think if we are those kinds of women who want to be encouragers and uplifters and mentors, then we naturally build community of women because that's what we all are seeking in our hearts.
Yeah. What an amazing story. And bless that woman's heart that did that. Anything could have changed the trajectory of that day, that moment. And that little lady blessed you. And I love that story. It's such a heartwarming story about community and how we can just serve others because we don't know whose first time it is doing this thing. And when we can just show the love of Christ and show up and serve.
Well, and at the end of that day, I did show up at my event and I had these bloody shins. We carry some scars, we carry the pain. But what I remember is that woman who went out of her way to come over and encourage, an embarrassed young mom, who had never done this before. So I think if we will do those things, we will make an impression more than we realize. She probably doesn't even remember it, but of course I will carry it with me for the rest of my life.
Such a great place to wrap up this amazing conversation with Rhea Lana. And you can connect with her in the show notes. Do you want to talk a little bit about that consultation that you mentioned?
Yes, we are giving away an hour-long free consultation with me and just talking about leadership and personal growth. And so our listeners can find us at rhealana.com/podcast because it's only for our podcast listeners. And we just want to help women find their next step, whether it's with a Rhea Lana's franchise or whether it's with their own idea. We would just love to help the listeners today just kind of find their next step in the journey of leadership and personal growth.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And you can connect with Rhea Lana in the show notes. Have an amazing, blessed day. That's it for today, friends. Real quick before you go, if this podcast has blessed you in some way, the number one way that you can thank me is to leave a written review over on Apple Podcasts. The second thing you can do is take a screenshot of this episode or that review and tag me over on social media in your stories at Kristen Duranci. And then I will share you in my stories and give you a shout out. This not only blesses me, but you are creating a ripple effect by getting this message into the hands of others that might need to hear it. And know that there's only one you. Someone is out there waiting to hear from you. They're waiting for your message, your story, and your solution to their problem. You are the expert they're waiting to hear from. I want you to know this, feel this, and most importantly, be this. Never underestimate the impact and power that you have been given through the Holy Spirit. Be blessed, friend, and I'll see you on the next episode.